transmission coming from just beyond the asteroid belt in our solar system.
Contact with the colony on Mars will be re-established.
Paris, Peking,
This may indicate
Reykjavik, and Tokyo
Black
head the list of recent devastated cities. After the recall from what was once known as
Conflicting farewell speech as these brave soldiers took the fight to Destro's home planet. We, the rest of humanity, wish them luck and Godspeed as well.
You know, one of the biggest perks to being born in the 90s was to witness the dawn of the video game resurgence on home console and PC. Platformers like Mario and Sonic were dominating home console, while id Software's Doom was leading the charge for first-person shooters on PC. It would be fair to say that Wolfenstein 3D got the ball rolling. I believe Doom is the one that hit the ball into the goal. id Software doing the smart thing and not wasting any time after all of Doom's original episode released, ending with Die Flesh Consumed. It naturally followed this up with the sequential Doom 2, cementing the legacy of one of the most legendary games of all time. Now, where do you go from here? You would think Doom 3 would be a safe bet, but nope. Id wanted to try something completely different in the form of Quake. Instead of a pissed off Marine fighting back against possessed soldiers, the legions of hell progressing deeper and deeper into hell with each chapter, in Quake you are a pissed off ranger fighting back the hordes of monsters and possessed soldiers controlled by eldritch horrors in a parallel dimension known as Quake, progressing further and further into Quake with each chapter.
They're the same picture.
Yeah, it kind of recycled a lot of stuff from Doom for Quake, but the slightly different tone and the jump from sprites to 3D models was pretty damn cool for the time. Instead of wandering around the UAC facility and then eventually hell, like you do in Doom, you make the jump from the base to another dimension in just a few levels instead of a whole episode. Plus, the weapon loadout for the game has some of the most iconic weapons in the FPS genre. To this day, I still hear that grenade launcher in my sleep. And nobody would be faulting in saying this game was a giant stepping stone for id. With the jump from 2D sprites to 3D models, this was a great follow-up to Doom. But for the sake of the video, let's use the Night Dive remasters instead of the original Quake. It's much better on the eyes. Yeah, there we go. However, the drawback at the time was Quake was supposed to be a completely different premise and story, just with similar combat. But there were so many places where it felt like a sequel to Doom 2. Heck, a few tweaks and this would have made a good candidate for Doom 3. Even the first dimension you jump to is called the Dimension of Doom. The episode ends with a boss that would feel right at home in Doom. And apparently the developers felt the same way with the sequel, Quake 2. Again, switching gears, doing away with the whole world and story of Quake 1. Instead, Quake 2 takes place in the future where humanity is at war with an alien threat known as the Strogg, a cybernetic race bent on conquering and assimilating Earth. So basically the Borg from Star Trek if it was backed by a heavy metal soundtrack. When this game was released, I think I was 7, and I remember listening to a couple teenagers arguing about it in a lunchroom at school. But little old me was completely content playing N64. If it wasn't Turok or GoldenEye, I did not care. But the memory of those two arguing stuck with me. And at the time, from what I remember, Quake 2 was kind of controversial. It split the fan base right down the middle. One side felt betrayed by the retconning of Quake 1, and the other side was thrilled with the new direction the series had taken. And this time around, there was an actual story being told with a pretty ambitious cutscene for the opening. Basic by today's standards, but back then this was pretty damn cool to see id make a proper opening for one of their games. This time around, instead of playing an unknown ranger, you're dropped into the boots of a Marine named Bitterman, the sole survivor of his unit taking on a whole mission by himself to destroy key points in enemy defense while taking out the Strogg leader, the Macron. Again, for the sake of the video, I'm going to use footage from the Quake 2 remaster with updated visuals, but not to throw off on the original Quake 2. There was monumental leaps in technology with this one, smoothing out the 3D model, even adding damage to them as you blow them apart. A couple of them will even try to attack you before they completely kick the bucket. I like the nice little touch that the devs put in. After the corpses sit around for a while, flies will start to buzz around. It's kind of neat. Disgusting, but neat. Now, unlike Quake 1's enemy roster that had pretty much the same tactic of running toward the player and bonking him on the head, the Strogg were an active military with different variants in the ranks like basic infantry, gunners, commanders, and the iconic berserkers, with one of the most well-known sound bites in gaming history. Then you got the heavier units with railguns and missiles. This was all pretty damn awesome stuff. It forced you to change up your tactics and have an actual shootout in the game. Plus you got a decent weapon loadout with railguns, shotguns, super shotguns, machine guns, the whole 9 yards. And to top it all that, you'll be blowing apart Strogg listening to Sonic Mayhem, I think one of the best soundtrack to come out of Quake, period. But it wasn't until the introduction of Quake 3 that I took notice. Yet again, for the next installment, it decided to take the series in a completely different direction, turning Quake 3 into a multiplayer arena shooter with the tacked on single player with bot-controlled enemies. And you know what? It was fun.
You are tied for the lead. You have taken the lead. Excellent.
Launching within days of another arena shooter, Unreal Tournament, both of these games set the gold standard for multiplayer shooters going forward. And I remember those same two teenagers that I talked about before were flabbergasted that id gave them both the middle finger, both their campaigns and standalone entries. But Joseph, James, wherever you two are, thank you for installing Quake 3 on the computers in the lab at school, so 10-year-old me could frag people instead of studying.
You are tied for the lead.
And I played Quake for a long ass time, though as an adult I may have gotten kicked from a couple of games for using certain slurs. Eat a bowl of fuck, you dumb mammal bastard. Well, to this point nobody could guess what it was going to do next for the series. Because you gotta think, 2 different single player campaigns, then a arena multiplayer game, plus the Team Arena expansion that kept Arena going for a long ass time. A lot of people who exclusively played the single player campaign thought Quake had run its course and was pulling an Unreal going multiplayer only, signaling it was time to move on. But then, it happened. It released the highly anticipated Super Turbo Turkey Puncher 3, one of the best games to come out in 2004. This game revolutionized the Super Turbo Turkey franchise in ways you wouldn't believe. This time licensed by Nabcon, it offered a stand-up arcade cabinet with a standard 8-button layout for better combos and an active scoreboard, and then a throwback gore physics for all Super Turbo Turkey punching needs. Oh, and I guess Doom 3 came out. Yes, Doom 3 was a monumental hit back in 2004 with a fresh coat of paint in the form of the id Tech 4 engine, bringing in dynamic lighting and emphasizing bigger focus on horror with dark shadows for enemies to lurk in, needing the flashlight to navigate certain areas while juggling guns. Doom 3 was a different animal compared to its predecessor. Of course, Doom 3 had its critics that hated the approach and said it didn't feel like Doom. Well, we call those people stupid. It had already released Doom 64 with a similar tone and setup, doing away with the heavy metal soundtrack, instead going for a soundscape by Aubrey Hodgins. The idea was to try to get under your skin instead of pumping you up to beat the next demon, something that was already implemented in the PlayStation port of Doom. So this wasn't completely out of left field. They were working toward this for a while. Either way, the game was still a success even with all the changes. But this made long-term fans wonder if it was coming back to Quake for another single-player campaign. And people did not have to wait long, because less than a year, Quake 4 was launched for PC and Xbox 360. However, this time, it wasn't handled by id. Instead, the reins were handed off to Raven Software. If you're not familiar with these guys, the best way to explain these two is if id and Raven were action heroes. Id would be Arnold Schwarzenegger, while Raven would be Sylvester Stallone. They both have very similar projects. Id usually out in front, but not far behind, would be Raven constantly nipping at their heels. For example, id came out with the Doom franchise, Raven came out with the Heretic and Hexen franchise. Whenever id would release a new graphics engine, Raven would implement it in a couple of their games. And these two developers would have this nice back and forth for years until Raven Software got into the niche of making their own installments of other companies' franchises. These days they're mainly assisting with Call of Duty. And they did make some really good Call of Duty games. I don't know about that last one. Ugh.
What is that? What the fuck is that?
But back in the day, these guys put some damn good games out, like their own reboot of Wolfenstein, their own addition to the Jedi series, Jedi Outcast, and then an original title in the form of Singularity, mixing combat with time travel mechanics, which was really pretty cool. And they even released one of the best superhero games for the 7th generation of consoles, the Uncaged edition of Wolverine Origins for PS3 and Xbox 360. If you're getting tired of waiting for the Insomniac to drop theirs, then go play this one instead. I guarantee you it'll be less disappointing than that game. But how did Raven Software do with handling Quake 4? Well, it's fucking phenomenal. Go play. Okay, I guess y'all want a little bit more than that, right? Story-wise, Quake 4 is a sequel to Quake 2, taking place directly after the events of the second game, landing us back on the planet Strogos for the final fight against its cybernetic inhabitants. This time stepping into the combat boots of Marine Matthew Kane, one certified badass.
Holy shit! This is some ride, eh, buddy? Who's the new guy?
Matthew Kane, one certified badass.
Officially a part of the prolific unit Rhino Squad, you're briefed by your CEO about the misadventures of the previous protagonist, Bitterman, before you and your squad are forcibly dropped on Strogos. Just like Doom 3, there's a bit more emphasis on story here, but it never feels intrusive or up its own ass like newer games that feel like interactive movies than actual games. After crash landing on Strogos, you get a better understanding of how devastating the Strogg war machine is, and how being on the back foot with these guys would spell certain doom. But this time, Earth came prepared, sending an entire fleet of ship packed full of infantry and armored units. Plus, Rhino Squad themselves survived the crash, so you ain't having to do this dance alone. You'll be aided by different squad mates and other units as you progress through the campaign. For the most part, your squad mates are fairly useful. Of course, sometimes they can get in the way if you're trying to outmaneuver enemies, but the benefits will outweigh the cons. Most squads will offer a medic or engineer. If your armor or health drop too low, one of these guys will come over and top you up. Plus, random soldiers will upgrade your weapons at certain points in the game. Though, not all squads are created equal. Cougar Squad, for example, kinda got my hopes up there.
Rhino Squad, be aware that Cougar Squad is incoming. They will be landing at the
Oh, really? Cougar Squad? Where are they at? Oh, that's not what I was expecting. Rhino Squad themselves are mostly memorable, but the standout is Private Johann Strauss.
Hello, Corporal Kane. It's good to finally meet you. I am Private Johann Strauss. You have no doubt heard of me.
This dude is voiced by Peter Stormare. Ah, fuck it. Plus, the majority of the squad is memorable for the most part. Some are more so than others.
Ah, so you did survive. I won the bet with Rose.
We were not properly introduced. I am Alejandro Cortez, Rhino Squad sharpshooter.
But they are entertaining when they do show up. It does suck when some of them meet their inevitable end, spoiler by the way, but a good chunk of the squad will make it to the end. But hands down, the best squad in the game is Raven Squad. You meet these guys once, they don't say much, but their AI just steamrolls over the bad guys toward the end, like they're tired and ready to go home. The invasion progresses as the way it's planned out. The Strogg get pushed back, but hit back harder with a counteroffensive, harvesting what Marines they can and killing the rest. A tactic that is actually pretty damn devastating when you think about it. Your own fallen soldiers will get repurposed by the Strogg to replenish their ranks while yours deplete, undoing whatever damage is done on the initial assault. Something you get to witness at the halfway mark. You see, the initial plan was to hit the Strogg, establish a base of operations, and use separate teams to charge through enemy lines to get to points on the map and set off an EMP to disable the Nexus, the heart of Strogg civilization. Things don't go according to plan. The Strogg strike back harder, getting led by the newly resurrected Macron. Kane gets captured and sent to process and getting Stroggified in real time. Yeah, warning, this isn't a game for the squeamish. You will witness Kane get his limbs chopped off and replaced by Strogg tech to the point that it doesn't even look human anymore. Only by the grace of Rhino Squad is he saved before his brain gets wiped. And right outside the room you get to see one of the few working mirrors to see what damage they've done. God, that's not pretty at all.
Welcome back, Corporal Kane. May I be the first to say you look like shit.
This does change gameplay a little bit by giving you better eyesight, increased movement speed, and allow you to use the Strogg med stations that are dotted around the map. But story-wise, this turns the tide of the war. Since Kane can access Strogg tech, they take the fight deeper into Strogg territory, directly to the Macron, and destroy the Nexus personally, ending the game. It's not much to it, it's a very simple story, but what this is a traditional Quake game at its core. The gameplay loop is exactly the same as Quake 2. Aside from a few puzzles that won't ask much of you other than flipping a switch or two. Something you better get used to, because apparently nobody else in this invasion can flip a fucking switch.
That window's reinforced glass. It'd take a lot more than our weapons to break it. Hey, Kane, you're the scout. Why don't you see if there's another way into that section?
Kane, find a way to open this. Sledge and Morris, take up a position. We're staying here.
Excellent. This looks to be the hub control room. See if you can find some way to rotate the crank. Very good, Kane. The tram is now facing the right direction. But it appears the track is damaged. Perhaps we can use some of the Strogg repair bots to fix the track. There is a door leading to a construction site below the track. You may be able to acquire some repair bots there.
Lizard, 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 lizard. Lizard.
I know why they do it. It gets annoying at times. It's Kane, go turn this, go flip that switch, go do this, go do that. If not for the player and Strauss, this invasion would have died on its feet at the halfway point.
Guys, but if they were to open the hatchway, they would have been subjected to supercooled air. Their lungs would have been frozen in a matter of seconds.
Okay, so what do?
I must find the temperature controls. From there, I should be able to make the atmosphere a little less hostile.
Sounds good. Kane, you're with Strauss. Find those controls.
You assign me only one guard? Must I die to show you how valuable I am?
It didn't work for me. I got cut to pieces and I'm still having to do this shit. But thankfully, the combat and the story are enough to keep you locked in. With a wide variety of weapons available, boredom and falling into a routine will not be an issue. The weapons for the most part work the same as Quake 2, with some extra tweaks thrown in for good measure. You start off with a pistol with unlimited ammo, but you're better off bending over and lighting your farts on fire hoping an enemy die from secondhand embarrassment than use this damn thing.
MIA no responsive. Fall back to rally point out.
What the hell is that?
Comes with a box of Cracker Jacks. It's also a whistle.
The machine gun makes its return, this time with a mounted flashlight on the bottom. And this was the answer to the flashlight debacle that Doom 3 had. You see, many critics had a problem with the flashlight in that game because you had to swap back and forth between the gun and the flashlight to navigate dark areas. Many people, like X-Play back then, oh my god, they had some okay takes, but they got worse over the years.
That's right, kids. Doom 3 is finally out. And is it everything we had hoped for? Not really.
I'm gonna need you to step on one of those red squares on the floor for a bioscan. This'll only take a second.
Yeah, and I'm gonna need you to go ahead and come in on Saturday, too. Doom 3 won't cure cancer, nor will it make you irresistibly attractive to the opposite sex.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Their complaint is, why not have a mounted flashlight or a flashlight on your shoulder like there was in Aliens? And I will admit, there are places in that game where you die from cheap death, something is out of sight. But that's kind of the point. The games are meant to have tension. You're not supposed to rush through willy-nilly just blasting away. You're supposed to progress slowly with the flashlight, and then whenever you hear something or see something, you pull out the gun. Because after all, you are fighting monsters in the dark. That's what they're aiming for. It was done on purpose. Raven understood this, and that's why the machine gun is the only weapon with the mounted light. Because carrying a flashlight all the time would really mess with the environmental lighting in this game, because there are spots in this game where it looks absolutely gorgeous. Just having that flashlight on all the time would mess with that. For the machine gun itself, it's not a bad fallback weapon. All you gotta do is hit F, it turns on the flashlight, and you're good to go. Now next up is the shotgun. It's kind of a sore subject due to it being the only shotgun in the game. Just like Doom 3, the super shotgun was omitted for some strange reason. As the game went on, I was hoping someone would upgrade this to the super shotgun, but nope, the only upgrade for this thing is a change from individually loaded shells to a magazine. Not that I'm saying this shotgun sucks, it works well as a workhorse weapon, it deals with cannon fodder in a single hit and will push back berserkers just fine. If you had a problem with Doom 3 shotgun, well, this won't disappoint you. I just wish I had the super shotgun, which is funny because in Doom 3's expansion, they actually brought back the super shotgun, and I'm pretty sure this was going to be the case, but I will go over that in a bit. It's bad. Hyper Blaster works like its Quake 2 counterpart. The upgrade makes the blast ricochet with extra damage. They miss most of the time, but it's okay. Next up is the nail gun, a nice addition to the roster brought over from Quake 1. This game serves as the answer to the mid-game heavier units, chewing through armor like with tissue paper. Most stroke units will be carrying a version of this gun with slowed down projectile speed, but on higher difficulties, it can be a bitch to deal with. What gives you the edge is the upgrade allows bolts to track a single pinged enemy, making this essential for flying enemies. The grenade launcher is exactly the same as the older one, but they mess with the sound, and I'm not fine with it. It kind of bugs me. The rocket launcher is what you expect, but the upgrade allows the rocket to be guided with the targeting laser after launch. The railgun makes its glorious return as the game's sniper rifle, lethal at most ranges, and you could use this up close if you wanted to. 3 shots to a magazine and a brief pause in between shots. If you want to use it up close, you better not miss. Finally, the lightning gun and the dark matter gun. The lightning gun, when you first get it, works fine. It's not something you swap to willy-nilly, but the upgrade flips that, changing it into a working chain lightning gun that renders enemies to pieces. Now this gun comes in handy when dealing with the new enemy variant found in the game, the Strogg Commandos. And this is what Kane was supposed to be before the repurpose cycle was, interrupted. As far as challenge goes, these guys will give you a run for your money, using the same weapons as the player and only enemies that use squad tactics. On hard, they will kick your teeth in a couple of times.
You suck, you jackass!
But that's where the upgraded lightning gun comes in. The bolt arcs to nearby enemies and deals massive damage across the board. So if you spot these guys' entry point fast enough, switch to lightning gun and fry the whole squad. And finally, the dark matter gun, the BFG of the game. Or would that be DMG? A weapon that fires a damaging singularity that travels in a straight line that explodes at the end of its run. The added benefit of sucking weaker or damaged enemies into itself along its path. And I have a feeling this is what the PSG in Turok 3 was supposed to be. The only difference is this one actually works. Damn, I really hate that gun. All these weapons have these uses, but you gotta learn them for higher difficulties. Some will work better against others. In the early game, it can be kind of tricky on hard mode with the limited loadout, but once you fill out the weapon selection, this game truly does shine. Add on top of that the dark visuals and the in-your-face action, this game is visceral as all hell. All throughout the game, you will see Marines in various state of processing from human to Strogg soldier are just being integrated into the Strogg systems. There were points where I stopped and pitied these poor dudes, but since they're part of the background, you can't put them out of their misery. And that is the ironic beauty of the Attack 4 engine and how it makes everything grungy and almost monstrous. The lighting this engine pulls off is downright black magic. But on the negative, it kind of makes the humans look a little off, almost like they should be helping a group of kids find One-Eyed Willie's treasure. But on the other hand, the Strogg look amazing. They've never looked better. For the enemies, you have your standard of fare for the previous game, like the infantry and the iconic berserkers. The commandos I mentioned before make their debut, and a fan favorite like gunners, black widows, all make their comeback. The Iron Maidens and gladiators get a facelift. But the technicians still look like floating trash cans. But a positive note, annoying enemies like flyers and parasites are gone. But there are a few hiccups here. The bosses, for example, they're nothing. Most of them are warfest or just scripted events. They look the part, but they're mostly there for show. Like this thing, for example.
That's a huge bitch!
You off this thing by avoiding its attacks and go flip 2 switches, killing it in a cutscene, and that's it. The Macrom itself is pretty challenging in his first encounter, but it's a fight you're supposed to lose. After collecting all the weapons, he is nothing. Even in his second phase, he has no challenge. He's nowhere near as challenging as what he was in Quake 2. Now, as far as problems, that's all I really have with this game. There's a few other issues that kind of bug me a little bit, but this game is pretty much solid. However, I'm in the minority on that part because this game flopped after it came out, meaning all future single-player DLC or expansions were cancelled, leaving this game out in the dust. But why did it do so badly? Now, if you ask most critics of Quake 4, supposedly it's because of linear dated gameplay, mediocre vehicle sections, a resemblance to Doom 3, unimpressive multiplayer, and unrewarding Stroggification. Well, let's tackle the first critique, shall we? The linear and dated gameplay. Yeah, I don't agree with this in the slightest. Quake 4 bringing its gameplay over from Quake 2 is a must-have. Messing with the gameplay loop would have netted actual criticism it deserved. Now, regarding the linearity, it's not much different from Quake 2, other than Quake 4 had to cut out optional routes that Quake 2 had. And yes, I get that's a bummer, but at the end of the day, Quake 4 still had a 9-hour campaign. If you buckle down, I guess you could knock it out in 8, but it's still pretty damn impressive considering Modern Warfare had a 6 to 7 hour campaign on its hands. Now, the second one I do agree with. Quake 4 has some horrific vehicle sections. The tank is alright, a little too slippy slidey for my liking, but the turret section just makes me groan. It makes me wish it's over before it even starts, because half the time it feels like I'm shooting the bad guys with a garden hose. You do get a mech at the halfway point. It's really not good for the simple fact you cannot strafe in this damn thing. Look, I get it. I'm not looking for Armored Core level of movement here, but forward and backwards shouldn't be my only means of movement in a mech. Now, regarding resemblance to Doom, there are sections in this game that are callbacks to Doom 3.
Okay, Marine. Time to kill anything that's not you.
Flooding chamber with trichlorite and septazine.
Okay, let me get this started. You're gonna need to hold still. Moving around only makes the test take longer. Alright, bioscan looks good. You're cleared for entry.
But But if they're talking about the visuals, I can't imagine why two games that use the same graphics engine would look the same, but most games that ran on the Tech 4 engine looked like this. All 9 of them, in fact. Yeah, it didn't have that many games that ran on the Tech 4. Multiplayer in Quake 4, I really don't care because we had Quake Arena for that. Quake 4 does have a decent multiplayer. Some countries still have servers up to this day for Quake 4, but that's not the real reason to play Quake 4, especially with Quake Arena around. Now, regarding the stroggification issue, what do you want, missiles coming out of your head? Everything I listed above is more than enough to get enjoyment out of this game. The increased movement speed, the increased eyesight, everything makes it better after you become a straw because you're now able to play Quake 4 like Quake 2 did. The reason why they dialed you back at the beginning of Quake 4 is so that you rely more on your squad because you are part of a unit. After the stroggification, you're more of a one-man army. You have all your weapons, you have all your movement speed, you have everything to actually take down the strog. It makes you feel like one-man army. Dialing you back at the beginning of the game makes you build up to that instead of getting it all in one go. But if I had to guess, they were talking about powers. Why didn't you get powers when you became Strogified? Kind of like what you get in the Xbox port of Far Cry Instincts. In that game, you get powers, and it also came out in 2005. But to my memory, that game wasn't that good, and everything the critics condemned Quake 4 for supposedly doing, Far Cry Instincts was actually guilty of. That's a different can of worms I'm not opening today. That's for later down the road. Ugh. But not only did Quake 4 have to deal with the bad takes from critics, it had to contend with bad ones from gamers too. For some reason over the years, this game was nicknamed Call of Quake due to the inclusion of squads, the war setting, and to me all this is baffling because Modern Warfare was still 2 years out when this game was released. And besides, Call of Duty was still trenched deep in its World War II era. COD 3 was releasing that following year. And if it's talking about the war setting, I'll refer you to a famous quote from Fallout.
War never changes.
My guess is some Call of Duty fanboy came out of the blue, picked up this game, played it expecting similar to Call of Duty with regenerating health and a limited weapon selection, got his ass kicked, got online and started bitching about it. Or that's my theory anyway. This game should have been commended for everything it did right. The story, for example, is pretty straightforward. As a campaign, you watch everybody progress from Act 1 Hudson to Act 2 Hudson when they start getting their asses kicked. And that brings up another talking point. Quake 4 gave us alien colonial marines a full decade before Gearbox dropped that steaming pile of excrement on us. It's almost comical how Quake 4 was able to pull off aliens a full decade before the actual licensed game came out, but this isn't anything new to the franchise. Quake 2 referenced aliens, but also Predator with the Macron. And it's not just referenced like that. If anything, the biggest influence on Quake 4 had to be Star Trek First Contact and how the Borg were portrayed in that movie. Yeah, I like the series version of the Borg, but the way they were portrayed in that movie, they were downright terrifying, and that's kind of mirrored here.
That thing's freaking out!
However, it does take it a couple of steps further with a body horror, looking akin to H.R. Geiger instead of Gene Roddenberry. But at the end of the day, everything that I listed above did not help with this game whatsoever. The sales for this game were just abysmal. Only a map pack for the multiplayer released. All other single player DLC was cancelled in response for poor sales. And even though this game did get good reviews, for some reason a lot of gamers back then called this a soulish cash grab, which I do not understand. This game was awesome, and what could have possibly come out at this time that could raise people's expectations so much? Oh, yeah, it didn't help that 2005 was packed with loads of games that shaped the genre for a long time to come. Capcom dropped Devil May Cry 3 and Resident Evil 4 that year. Ubisoft dropped Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. Standalone games like Shadow of Colossus, the debut of Guitar Hero happened that year. Plus you had industry gold standards like Fear, Battlefront 2, and Battlefield 2, all coming out that year. To say that this game had an uphill fight is an understatement. And even releasing Quake 4 as a launch title for Xbox 360 could not save it. And for shits and giggles, I gave the 360 port a go. It's actually pretty damn good. And the critiques online don't even make sense for this game. They said it had poor performance. And yes, on screen what you see, it's a little slower in certain sections. But keep in mind, back in the day when Quake 4 was released, you had to upgrade to a higher end graphics card just to run this game. So porting Quake 4 over to the 360, which if a lot of people don't remember, the 360 had this little knack of red ringing in its first generation. I guarantee you, not a single Xbox 360 from the first generation is still alive today. If it is, it has serviced at least one point in its life. Most of those early Xboxes are either in a landfill somewhere or they look like this. This is an early Xbox 360. See all the capacitors and how they're blown? That's the issue it had. If it wasn't the capacitors, it was the GPU. So dialing back Quake 4 so it wouldn't red ring your Xbox was kind of a necessity. If you look at everything packed in with a 360 port, it's actually pretty damn cool. Not only do you have Quake 4, but you also have a running version of Quake 2 also, and it's not that bad. It looks on par with the PC port, the original PC port. Plus you have documentaries on how it's made, E3 trailers, pretty much everything this has in the history in one little bonus disc for the 360. So that's pretty damn cool. And in fact, I think Raven did a phenomenal job with the game. It's not fair that what happened to it, but what ultimately undid this game was the series itself. It took too many twists and turns in development over the years, splitting the fan base into halves and thirds until it all came to a head with Quake 4. If it's not obvious, I highly recommend Quake 4. It's not perfect, it's got its dents here and there, but it's worth a playthrough at least once in your life. If I can turn one person into a fan of Quake 2 and then 4, then I would have done my job. In fact, I recommend the whole series. They're all phenomenal games that are suffering from the curse of sharing the same name. And with the remasters of Quake 1 and Quake 2, maybe Night Dive will go ahead and remaster Quake 4, giving it some love, because it definitely deserves it. So if you can, go ahead and play Quake 4, if not on the PC, give the 360 port a go. It's not that bad. But I think it's time I go ahead and end the video. I have talked way too much about Quake 4. If I haven't convinced you by now, I probably won't ever convince you. So until next time, y'all take care. Yeah. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked the video, please go ahead and leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more. Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, the whole 9 yards. But we also have a Patreon page. So if you wish to support the channel through that, by all means, give it a gander. The link is down below.